Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks to be here. This is the IAU Symposium 367 Education and Heritage of Astronomy in the Era of Big Data. And this is our last day. It's an amazing thing because it was a very hard week and very intensive and with very nice invited talks and oral contributions and a very good exchange between the participants. Today and this part of the day is a special moment because I think you noticed that it's a day of women. Almost all the speakers at the first part of the day are women. So thank you very much, everyone. And if you permit me, we will start with the first invited talk of the day. I have the pleasure to introduce the speaker, who is Karen Hallberg. Is not just a colleague, but also a friend. So thank you very much, Karen, to be here. Please open your camera if you want. Karen holds a PhD in physics from the Balseiro Institute in Bariloche. So she also lives in Bariloche, but now is not there. And is a principal researcher of the Argentinian Council of Science and Technology, the CONICET, working at Bariloche Atomic Center, and is a professor at the Balseiro Institute, which depends on the Argentinian Commission of Atomic Energy and also the University of Cuyo in Mendoza. She has been awarded the 2019 L'Oreal UNESCO International Award for Women in Science for Latin America. So, Karen, the stage is all yours, and thank you very much to be here with us.
Good morning, Beatriz. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Beatriz, and the organizers of this important symposium for the invitation. I felt very honored when you invited me several months ago. In fact, I think it was last year. So it's a great pleasure to be here with you and with all of you talking about these issues, very important issues of women in science in general. In this moment, I am in Las Grutas. Las Grutas is on the Atlantic coast in the province of Rio Negro, and we arrived here last night quite late from Bariloche because we came here to see the eclipse, to watch it on Monday. So I'm so sorry, all of you who are not here in Argentina, who could not come, won't be here, and this is not, I'm not impressed in talking to you, but I really hope we can meet sometime in the near future. I wanted to talk to you about the topic of women in science in general. I'm very happy today we have so many women speakers at this symposium. So this is excellent. And this is not the usual case, as you'll see in a second. So let me convey to you some ideas that worry me a lot. And I'll tell you some examples, some reflections, and the main message is that we really need a deep cultural change. We know that, but it's taken time, and the things are moving too slowly. But I'm optimistic, and I think things could change, and it depends on us and of course on the whole society. I have many stories to tell. When during my career, I had to face many problems that in that moment maybe they were not, I didn't see them as problems, but now reflecting on that, this is something I say, well, it happened to me, and it does happen to maybe many other women and many young women in science. For example, once I was at my postdoc in Germany, and I was writing my first single authored paper, and I handed it out to my colleague, saying, Leslie, tell me what do you think about this, my male colleague? And he said, well, the paper is very nice. I think it has chances, it will be published, but I think I suggest you to write your initials and not your full name. So because then you can have more chances that the paper is accepted if they don't realize you're a woman. And I couldn't believe that he was saying that. Of course, I signed the paper with my full name. But these are small things that happen. Another time I was at a conference No, I was invited to give a talk at an institution abroad from Argentina. And after the talk, my colleague who had invited me said, your talk was very nice, very orderly, very rational, and very logic. You seem to think like a man. This was several years ago in 2000, beginning of the 2000s. So this is, let me show you now some, a photo. I will share the screen with you. So I'll share this. In the beginning of this year, I was invited also to give a talk at a conference in Benasque in Spain. It was a workshop on entanglement in strongly correlated systems. This is my area of research. And then, well, as you see, there's a bunch of people, about 55 participants, out of which we can only count 5 women, and here they're in yellow. So, I mean, this is nothing new for most of you. I mean, this is a current situation in many symposiums, many meetings. So 5 women out of 55 participants, this is 10%, less than 10%. And this is a situation that has to change. So this, where is Vilma? Where are the women in science? Why is it that we have such few women in science? This could be this story I was telling you about. What happened to me could be the story of many young women in STEM careers, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I invite you to look around, like in this case of my conference, and to see really that what a few amount of women are around. Women are not only a minority, but they are far from being protagonists in policy making. And there are very few exceptions, and men continue to dominate the field. We know UNESCO reported the statistics that worldwide less than 30% of researchers are women, but this includes all fields. It also includes medicine, biology, social sciences. So if imagine including all scientific fields is less than 30%. Imagine if we concentrate in STEM fields, this number is much lower, but we do not have that number. But so one can assure that we have much less than 30% of women in STEM careers as researchers worldwide. Let's look, for example, at the numbers we know. There are very few women who got Nobel Prizes in science. But let's look at the numbers. The numbers are really astonishing. We only have 12 women in physiology and medicine. This is updated to this year, out of 210 men. We have 4 women in physics. Of course, this year, Andrea Ghez got the Nobel Prize in physics, but 212 men got the Nobel Prize in physics. We have 2 women in economy out of 82 men, 7 women in chemistry of 179 men. In total, we have 25 women that won the Nobel Prize. In science, out of 683 men. If we look in mathematics, in the Fields Medal, only Mariam Mirzakhani got it out of 60 prizes, or the Abel Prize in mathematics, sorry, or Fields Prize. And in the Abel Prize this year, last year, Karen Hallberg got it among 20 recipients. So this is really striking, and it shows that as a society, we evidently are facing a problem which we must face as a whole. The question is, do we need to change this situation? Why, we could ask. I mean, maybe women have different preferences, maybe we think differently, maybe we have a different brain. According to several reliable and recent publications on the topic, there is mounting evidence that the brain is not gendered, not more, I would say, than the heart, the kidneys, or the liver. But it is a well-established myth that women's brains are more capable or wild for empathy and intuition, and male brains are supposed to be optimized for action and for reason and for logic. We don't even know what consciousness is, how we reason, how we store information, and we're looking for differences between women's and men's brains. This has been dubbed neurosexism by Gina Rippon in her book, The Gendered Brain, where she states that only a gendered society will produce a gendered mind. I think it's a very important topic to reflect on and really think about if we are really going to ask ourselves the question if the brain is really gendered. Others have stated they argue that we have different perspectives and that it is important to have more women in science to increase diversity. Yes, of course, diversity is important and inclusion of different perspectives is good for science. However, there is more diversity between men stemming from different cultures and between men and women in a society in general. So this argument is valid, the argument of diversity, when one is discussing cultural and cultural reach and inclusion of modern science, but not for gender-specific issues. There's no reason whatsoever that there shouldn't be equal participation and a parity of women and men in science and technology in all fields. The fact that there is such an enormous gap is a strong warning that we still have serious cultural, social, economic, and political biases. And the burden should not put only on women's shoulders, but on society in general, on our culture and on our political structure. Well, of course, there have been women that have paved the way for other women to follow through, that have challenged the system and that have made history in science. And I'd like to pay tribute to some of those women who have paved the way for other women to follow. So let me mention three of these women because I think they're inspirational. I hope and I'm sure they inspire other women to follow. They lived in different moments. One is, surely you know about her, Caroline Lucretia Herschel. She was a pioneer at her time because she was born in Hanover in Germany in 1750. She was an educated woman who would catalog stars and nebula and discover comets, including the periodic comet, the 35P Herschel-Rigolet, which bears her name. She was the first woman astronomer to earn a salary. She used to earn 50 pounds a year, which is equivalent to 6,400 pounds a year in 2020. So 6,400 pounds. As an assistant to her brother, the astronomer William Herschel, who discovered Uranus in 1781, and which he mistook for a comet. She worked with her brother William throughout her whole career. She was the first woman in England because she was born in Germany but then moved to England and worked there with her brother. She was the first woman in England to hold a government position, the first woman to publish scientific findings in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, and to be awarded a gold of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1828, and also to be named an honorary member of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1835 with Mary Somerville. She was also named an honorary member of the Royal Irish Academy in 1838. The King of Prussia presented her with a gold medal for science on the occasion of her 96th birthday in 1846. Caroline Lucretia Herschel was recognized in her time, but she was one of the very, very few women doing science in general in that moment. In 1802, however, the Royal Society published Caroline's catalogue in its Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society under William's name. So the catalogue she had worked mainly on, of course, in collaboration with William, but it wasn't even under her name. With her brother, she discovered over 2,400 astronomical objects over 20 years. The asteroid 281 Lucretia was discovered in 1888, was named after Caroline's second name, Lucretia. And the crater C. Herschel on the moon bears her name. So there is a crater that I'm showing here that bears her name. There's also a crater who has her brother's name, Herschel, which is much bigger. The telescopes they polished, they were the best in their times, in the 1800s. So a tribute to Caroline Herschel. Of course, I mean, we're contemporary with Jocelyn Dame Burnell. She, probably many of you know her personally, but she's very, very relevant in astronomy. She was born in Northern Ireland, and as a postgraduate student, she discovered the first radio pulsars in 1967. She found a signal which was pulsing with great regularity at a rate of about 1 pulse every 1 1/3 seconds. So every second and a little bit more, she found this very strange and periodic signal, radio signal. They thought in the beginning it was some extraterrestrial artificial intelligence, an intelligent signal, because it was so periodic, and she named it LGM, which stands for Little Green Man, thinking it was some signal of extraterrestrial life. And now it is known, this source is known as the PSR B1919+21. It was identified several years later as a rapidly rotating neutron star. Sorry. This discovery, let me show you here. I was very impressed to see this, because in her paper published in Nature in 1968, probably you see here the signals, here this periodic signal as a function of time. Here we have seconds on the x-axis. And this is a paper in which she is a second author. She was as a postgraduate student, and her advisor was the first author. So the title of this paper was Observation of a Rapidly Pulsating Radio Source. I think it's very impressive to see really what a small signal, but how they discovered this in the huge amount of radio signals they were observing. And she was acute and enough to be able to distinguish this very periodic signal coming from them afterwards recognized as a rapidly rotating neutron star. This discovery was recognized by the award of the 1974 Nobel Prize in Physics, but as here you see, despite being in the original paper and being the first person to discover the pulsars, because she's the one who detected them, she was not one of the recipients of the prize. In 2018, she was awarded, however, the Special Breakthrough Prize in Fundamental Physics, a very important recognition for her discovery of these radio pulsars. And following the announcement of the award, she decided to donate and to give the whole of the £2.3 million prize money to help female, minority, and refugee students seeking to become physics researchers. It's called the Bell Burnell Graduate Scholarship Fund. So thank you, Jocelyn, for all your contributions to science. So finally, I would like to mention, of course, Andrea Ghez. Andrea Ghez is an American astronomer. She was born in 1965, and she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics this year. Working at the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of California at Los Angeles. Her research focuses on the center of the Milky Way galaxy. In 2020, she became the fourth woman to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics, shared also with Gensel and with Penrose, for the discovery of a supermassive compact object, now generally recognized as a black hole in the center of the Milky Way's galaxy, which has a mass of 4.1 million solar masses. She used, developed and used very important, very precise telescopes, and they developed a very, very precise way of measuring or looking through the Milky Way into the center of the Milky Way. Here you see an image which I think is very impressive, because one can see spatial distribution of the objects that we're measuring from different experiments too. And here, this plus is the center of the galaxy. You can see how blurred all the images are, but these are the this precision allowed them to see the rotation of stars around the supermassive object in the center of the galaxy.
Karen, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yes, I'm about to finish. The Apollo program landings when she was young inspired Guess to aspire to be the first female astronaut, and her mother encouraged her to that goal. So also thank you, Andrea, for all your contributions to science. So yes, I'm about to finish. There is still an enormous cultural barrier that keep many girls from science, and also girls and boys stemming from different or less advantaged or discriminated backgrounds or sectors of society. We are witnessing an important moment in history concerning women's rights and empowerment in all fields. However, although the situation has improved a lot, somewhat, it has improved, there's still a long way to go. Compared to half a century ago, the situation is evidently much better, but we're really far from it, and you can see that in the numbers I gave at the beginning. The path must be paved to include all the talent we're missing, and to allow anyone to choose a scientific career without having to go through important barriers, and this is what's still happening now. We definitely need cultural change, and because mainly it is a question of justice, of non-discrimination, and of equal opportunities. So I'm optimistic, and I really think things could change, but it depends on all of society, not only on women. And thank you, Beatriz Aguilera, the organizers of this symposium, to include this very important topic to be discussed among all of us. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Karen, for your inspiring talk. It was very good. Thank you, really, because I know you are a busy woman. And we had for a moment a couple of questions, some comments. The first one is about, what about the Black women and the LGBT people totally underrepresented? What's your opinion about that? If it is at the same level that the women?
No, I think the situation is still worse. It's worse than the situation of non-Black or women that are not from those communities, for example, or identified as. So that's why people talk about gender problems in general, not to talk about a bipolar society. People are people. We're perfect. We're scientists, and evidently there is a bias, because not only Black women, in Argentina, for example, we have very few students in science that come, as I mentioned in my talk, from other sectors of society. So less wealthy or vulnerable sectors of society. You see it everywhere, and this is not only women but also young boys. So there are. We still have a big bias in our representation. We're talking a lot about women in physics, but it's really more of a gender problem. So I completely agree with the person who asked the question. We still have a long way to go in that sense.
You have another question by Elena Cipollone. It's at YouTube channel. And she said, wouldn't make sense also to look at the figures of Nobel laureates, women in literature, for example, to put in the same list that you made?
Well, I understand, yes, of course. In other fields, we also have underrepresentation of women. I only mentioned women in STEM or in science. I also included economy, because so it's more in the verge of science, but also applications to society. because we're talking about this in this meeting, but the discrimination of women is in every field, everything, in companies, in governments, in other fields of science. I agree, yes. If you look at it, I mean, they're also underrepresented, not so much. There are somewhat more women, also in the Peace Prize, for example, women activists. But in all fields, we are very few women, and things have to change.
A question by Jose Gomez. What could be the first step to solve the gender problem?
No, there's not only one step to solve. As I say, I think it's a general problem. I think it's mainly a cultural problem, but it has to be dealt by not only by women, because there are many groups of women talking about women problems and the women in science, for example. But however, I mean, the groups are okay because some things can arise that only arise in women's groups, but this is something that concerns the whole of society, also men and women, also governments, society as a whole. So there's not only one step, I think, but the main thing behind it is respect for everybody and the recognition that within our differences, we're all part of human being. And this is something that has to be deeply rooted into the culture, and this is something that has to change.
I have a question. How confident are the surveys about the situation of the women on the planet? Are confident the results are confident or not, or there is a bias?
No, I don't know if there is a bias, Beatriz, but the UNESCO, if you dig into the data, you see that it's very difficult to collect data from the whole world. I mean, some societies, for example, Saudi Arabia or other countries that don't have good statistics. We in Argentina, for example, we don't have very good statistics. We do have something, but we're far from having. So the first step to analyze a problem is to have good statistics. And for example, at the UNESCO international level, it is complicated. And if you look, some countries, they give statistics with a certain weight or some data, some give other weight. And if you want to discriminate in STEM careers, it's very difficult because some countries do it, but not all. So that's why they have this number, which is just below 30%. But it includes all sciences because they ask the countries. For example, Argentina gives them numbers that includes all sciences. CONICET has just over 50% researchers, which are female, and that includes all sciences in CONICET. And these are the numbers Argentina gives UNESCO. So this is how I realize that UNESCO includes all sciences. I would be very good for UNESCO to do the same exercise, but with STEM professions or STEM areas.
And what about the culture? Because the surveys are standards, are standard surveys, but each country has different problems. So what do you think? Is better a universal survey of the status of the women, or we need more connected with each country, each culture,
yes,
to have a better
picture? Yes. So to have a universal version is okay because you have the whole picture of the world, and that gives you a first order approximation. But to look at it at each country is important. For example, if you look at Tunisia, Tunisia has I think it has over 60% of women in physics, for example. And once I was talking to some Tunisian physicists at the ICTP in Trieste, and I said, look how good, I mean, congratulations, you have so many. They said, yes, we have a cultural problem there because women physicists are not well paid for, and it's not regarded as an appropriate profession. So men do not do physics because they are expected to go to companies, to a private company or to other areas, and not in physics. That's why we have so many physicist women in Tunisia, because it's not considered as an appropriate profession. And this is something which is cultural, and I agree with you. This is something that has to stem out. Bolivia has a similar problem. If you look at Bolivia, there are not so many physicists, and you have in proportion a larger amount of women physicists. And this is because also how society regards women in the profession itself.
Yes, and what is your your thought about the situation when the women in general are available for position of power, a high level, and sometimes the women are against or don't accept this position by any reason. Which is your message to the young people about this, about to take the responsibilities and not to doubt about her own good work or good position to accept this position, a decision, a direction,
yes,
for example.
Yes, I mean, what you say, when it's really, I mean, one can really realize that in many cases it is a question of self-confidence. I mean, we're still educating our young students from the very beginning in a biased way, and it's still there. Of course, we're talking about it. We're more conscious about the biases we are instilling in our young girls and boys. But I think a question of confidence is very important. I think it's fundamental. For example, what I reflected on my career, I think that the confidence I got mainly from my family was fundamental for my development. And this is something I didn't get necessarily from my early days at school. And I needed this confidence to overcome all these barriers I found during my career. But this is something that shouldn't be so, because we should be able to include women who do not have a strong personality and who can follow their career normally as other men do, because they like it, and not because they're really aiming at being Olympic or getting a Nobel Prize. I mean, they should just be able to follow science because they like it and because they're passionate about it. And this also concerns having responsibilities. Having a responsibility shouldn't be only a question of gaining a position as a woman, but it should be completely taken as normal. Why? Because we also have a right and to have access to these positions. And this would be, when we reach parity, this would be a measure of the maturity of our society. Until we don't reach that, it's always a question of how we gain position. So I think we're in a transitory moment where we have to have some special considerations, all these positively discriminative policies. And I think they are good, but given and considering that we are in a transitory position, because it shouldn't be there forever.
Well, yes, thank you. The last question, because we have not more time, but is by Corina Lavine. She said, we make the cakes and the men eat them. Do you agree that is the same in science?
Well, it's a nice metaphor, but sometimes we don't even make the cakes, because I mean, if you see the protagonism of men taking decisions, and they are, in Argentina we have a say that we cut the fish. Who is cutting the fish? I mean, who's making it? For me, to make the cake is to have the possibility of deciding what cake to make, what ingredients to buy, how much, for how many people. And women, they very seldom have that possibility of taking that decision when it comes to science. So I think we don't even make the cakes.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. It was a great presentation, and well, have a nice Monday with the total solar eclipse. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. Thank you all, and have a very good symposium. And I think about all of you when I'm watching the eclipse. I really hope you can follow it. Goodbye, Beatrice. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much again.
Bye-bye.